You walk into the dealership and you see it. That beautiful new car sitting on the lot with the sunlight glinting off the hood, and your brain immediately starts doing something weird. It's calculating whether you can afford the monthly payment instead of calculating whether you can afford the car itself. $399 a month. That sounds reasonable, right? Your brain thinks so anyway. It doesn't feel like real money because it's spread out. It's not like someone's asking you to write a check for $22,000 right now. That would make your stomach turn. But $399, that feels almost manageable. You could skip 2 coffee runs and cover it. You could eat out 1 fewer time per week, and boom, suddenly you've got a new car with that new car smell, and everyone's impressed when you pull into the driveway. Your friends think you've made it. Your family's excited for you. You feel like you're succeeding. But here's what's actually happening underneath all that excitement. You're about to make a financial decision that will literally cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime, and almost nobody's talking about it. My name is Alex, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, financial psychology, and why people make decisions that seem totally reasonable in the moment but absolutely wreck their financial future over time. I've spent years helping people understand their finances, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that the car payment trap is probably the single biggest wealth killer in America. It's worse than credit card debt in some ways because it's socially acceptable. Everyone does it. Your parents did it. Your coworkers are doing it. So it feels normal, but normal doesn't mean good. Normal means broke. If you're someone who's ever wondered about the real cost of a car payment, or you want to understand why some people seem to build wealth while others are always scrambling, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up, because understanding the car payment trap might be the most important financial conversation you never knew you needed to have. Here's the thing that nobody talks about, and I mean literally nobody. When you finance a car, you're not just spending money on a depreciating asset. You're doing something far more insidious. You're locking yourself into a financial commitment that actively prevents you from building wealth for years. And the crazy part is that society has normalized this so completely that it feels weird to suggest maybe you shouldn't have that car payment at all. I remember talking to someone a few months ago who made decent money, like probably $65,000 a year after taxes. Nothing crazy, but solid, and their car payment was $650 a month. When I asked why they had such a high payment, they said, well, I wanted something reliable and safe for my family. Which is reasonable, right? Reliability and safety matter. I get it. You want to feel secure. You want to know your car's not going to break down and leave you stranded. But here's where it got interesting. Their second car payment was another $400 a month. And their spouse had a third vehicle with a payment of $350 a month. So this household making $65,000 annually was spending $1,400 every single month on car payments. That's not including insurance, which for 3 vehicles might be another $300 a month. So we're talking about $1,700 a month just to have 3 cars. That's just over 31% of their gross income going to vehicles. And they wondered why they couldn't save money. They wondered why they felt like they were always behind. They wondered why their friends who made the same amount of money seemed so much further ahead financially. But I knew exactly why. Their friends probably had lower car payments or no car payments at all. Their friends were probably investing money while this household was making payments. It's that simple. It's that brutal. The math on this is actually pretty straightforward when you sit down and think about it, but almost nobody does. A typical car payment in America is somewhere around $550 to $700, depending on what you're financing. Let's use $600 as a nice middle number. Most car loans are either 60 or 72 months. Let's say 72 months, which is 6 years. That's $600 times 72, which equals $43,200. So you're spending $43,200 on the loan itself. But wait, there's more. There's always more. You've got to add insurance, which might be $150 a month if you've got decent coverage. That's another $10,800 over those 6 years. Then there's maintenance and repairs. Modern cars are pretty reliable, but you're still looking at maybe $100 to $150 a month in maintenance costs if we're averaging things out. That's another $7,200 to $10,800. Oh, and gas. Let's say you drive 12,000 miles per year, which is about average. At current gas prices, you're probably spending $100 to $150 a month on gas. Over 6 years, that's $7,200 to $10,800. So let me add all this up. You've got the payment, the insurance, the maintenance, and the gas. We're talking about somewhere between $68,000 and $75,000 to drive that car for 6 years. And here's the thing that really gets me. At the end of 6 years, you don't own an appreciating asset. You own a 6-year-old car that's now worth maybe $8,000 to $12,000 on the used market, if you're lucky. So you've spent $70,000 and you have $10,000 worth of stuff to show for it. That's a net loss of $60,000. And that assumes you don't get into an accident, don't have major repairs, and don't decide you want something different before the loan is paid off. But here's what really bothers me about this whole thing. It's not just the money spent, it's the opportunity cost. And I know that sounds like economics class buzzword nonsense, but stick with me because this is where your brain needs to really understand what's happening. Let's imagine instead of financing that $43,200 car, you bought a reliable used vehicle for $8,000 outright. You're driving the same basic transportation. You're getting to the same places. Nobody's thinking less of you because your car is older. But instead of paying $600 a month, you're paying maybe $80 a month in maintenance. So you freed up $520 every single month. What happens if you take that $520 and invest it? If you're getting an 8% annual return on your investment, which is pretty conservative, over 6 years, that $520 a month becomes about $41,000. And that's before any additional contributions or raising the amount as your income increases. So you've essentially turned a car payment into an investment that's growing. But most people don't do that. They make the $600 payment and then they don't have the money to invest anyway. So they stay broke. They stay stuck. They stay stressed about money. And, I think what's really fascinating about this is how normalized the car payment has become. Like, people will tell you that you need a car payment, that it builds your credit score, which is technically true. A car payment does help build credit. But here's the question nobody asks, and this is important. What if you could build credit in a way that doesn't cost you $60,000 over 6 years? Like, you can get a credit card, use it responsibly, pay it off every month, and build credit without ever taking on debt. You can build wealth and credit simultaneously, but that doesn't work for car dealerships. They make money when you finance through them. They make even more money if you finance at a higher interest rate. So there's this entire industry, a massive industry with billions of dollars at stake, that has a financial incentive to convince you that car payments are normal and necessary and just part of being an adult. The dealerships aren't bad people necessarily. They're just running a business. And their business model depends on you financing a car. They're not going to tell you to buy used. They're not going to tell you to save up and pay cash. They're going to tell you about flexible financing options. They're going to talk about how easy it is to get approved. They're going to make you feel like you'd be crazy not to drive home in a new car today. I'm here to tell you that's not true. And I say that as someone who absolutely drives a car. I drive, I just don't have a payment. I purchased my current car used for $15,000 5 years ago, and I've maintained it well, put money into it when it needed repair, and you know what? It's still running great. And I've saved over $30,000 compared to someone who financed a new car during that same time period. Maybe more than that, honestly. Let me talk about something else that really grinds my gears about car payments, which is how they interact with your career choices and your entire life trajectory. If you're locked into a $600 a month car payment, that's $7,200 a year that you've committed to. That's not something you can cut if your income drops unexpectedly. It's a non-negotiable obligation. If you're thinking about starting a business or taking a job with lower pay but better growth potential, that car payment becomes a ball and chain. You can't take the risk because you can't afford the payment. You're trapped. And I've seen this happen to so many people. They get stuck in jobs they hate because they have 2 car payments and a mortgage and all these obligations that feel immovable. Their boss knows it too, honestly. On some level, everybody knows the person with big car payments is more desperate to keep their job. They're more likely to tolerate mistreatment. They're less likely to negotiate or push back on unreasonable requests. But if you don't have that car payment, suddenly you have options. You could take that commission-based sales job where the upside is huge but the base pay is lower. You could negotiate for freelance work where you have control over your schedule. You could try that startup idea that might not work but also might change your life. You could even take time off to figure out what you actually want to do. Without the car payment, you actually have freedom. With it, you're locked in for 6 years minimum. Here's another angle on this that I don't think enough people consider: the psychological aspect of the car payment. There's actual research showing that car purchases are highly emotional decisions. People aren't buying transportation, they're buying an identity, they're buying status, they're buying the feeling of success or luxury or reliability or safety. That's fine. Those are real human needs. I get it. You want to feel like you've accomplished something. You want to feel safe and secure. You want to feel like you're succeeding. But here's where it gets problematic. The moment you drive a new car off the lot, it loses roughly 20% of its value. Just like that, it's not because anything is wrong with it. It's because it's now used instead of new. That's it. That same reliability you're paying premium money for, a 3-year-old version of the same model has all of it and costs half as much. Think about that. You could buy the same car 3 years old and save $20,000. But your brain doesn't think that way. Your brain thinks about the smell. It thinks about the status of having something new. It thinks about how good you feel walking out of the dealership knowing you've got a brand new car with that smell. And then your brain gets hit with the payment reminder every month, and suddenly that feeling is gone. The novelty wears off. The car is just a car. It's going to get you to work and the grocery store like any other car. But you've locked yourself into 6 years of payments regardless. And statistically, by year 4 or 5, you're getting tired of the car. The payments feel old. You're thinking about upgrading to something newer. So you trade it in, get a new one, and you're back on the payment treadmill again. And some people do this their entire working lives. They go from one car payment to another without ever breaking the cycle. It's like running on a hamster wheel. You're running, you're moving, but you're not actually getting anywhere. I want to give you another real example because numbers without context are kind of meaningless. Let's say there are 2 people. Both make $70,000 a year after taxes. That's their take-home income. That's a solid middle-class income in most parts of America. Person A goes to the dealership and finances a new car for $40,000 at a 5% interest rate over 72 months. Their payment is $646 a month. Over 6 years, they pay about $46,500, including interest. At the end of 6 years, their car's worth maybe $12,000. That's just how depreciation works. It's not negotiable. Person B, on the other hand, buys a used car for $12,000 cash. They're not borrowing anything. They do their research. They buy something reliable with reasonable mileage. Over 6 years, they maintain it well, spend maybe $100 a month on maintenance and upkeep, get new tires when they need them, keep it running. That's $7,200 total for 6 years of ownership. At the end of 6 years, their car is still worth roughly $5,000 to $7,000. So person A spent about $46,500 and has a $12,000 asset. Net cost is around $34,500. Person B spent $7,200 and has a $6,000 asset. Net cost is around $1,200. The difference is $33,300. That's massive. But here's where it gets crazy. If person B takes the $646 a month that person A is spending and invests it at an 8% return, which is conservative and historically accurate for stock market returns, that $646 monthly investment becomes roughly $50,000 after 6 years. So person B has built $50,000 in actual wealth, while person A has a depreciating car and a nice car payment history. This is the trap. This is what nobody talks about. And the gap only gets wider if we extend the timeline. Over a 20-year career, someone constantly making car payments while someone else buys used and invests the difference could have a wealth gap in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're talking $500,000 or more. That's life-changing money. That's retirement money. That's the difference between financial security and financial stress. And, I want to be clear about something. I'm not saying you should never have a car or that you should drive something unsafe or unreliable. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that most people could significantly improve their financial situation by making different choices about vehicles. You could buy a reliable 5-year-old car with 60,000 miles for $15,000 that will run for another 100,000 miles with basic maintenance. Or you could spend $35,000 on a new car that you'll be tired of by year 4 anyway. The transportation gets you to the same place. The money situation does not. The choice between those two options is literally the difference between building wealth and staying broke. Here's what actually drives me crazy about this whole situation. It's that car dealers have figured out how to make car payments feel inevitable and normal. They've got financing options. They've got lease programs. They've got trade-in programs where you can get into a new car with minimal down payment. They've created this entire psychological ecosystem where not having a car payment feels abnormal and weird. If you walk into a dealership and say, "I want to buy a car for cash," they look at you like you're insane. Like, why would anyone pass up the opportunity to go into debt? And the financing department? That's actually where a lot of their profit comes from. They make money on the interest. They make money on extended warranties. They make money on every aspect of getting you financed. So they're incentivized to get you to finance at all costs. But that's exactly the trap. The trap is that you're supposed to feel lucky that they're willing to finance your purchase. You're supposed to be grateful for the opportunity to pay interest. You're supposed to feel like you're getting a good deal when you negotiate for a slightly lower payment, even though you're still spending tens of thousands of dollars. And meanwhile, you're locking yourself into 6 years of payments that cost you tens of thousands of dollars in opportunity costs. Let me talk about one more thing that I think is really important, which is the psychological momentum of the car payment. And this ties into something called lifestyle inflation. When you're paying a car payment, you're already accustomed to that money leaving your account every month. So when you pay off that car, instead of taking that freed up money and investing it or saving it or building wealth, a lot of people just immediately go out and get another car. The payment goes away and they think, great, I've got $600 more a month now. And instead of keeping that money, they immediately use it to finance a new car because they think they deserve an upgrade. They go from a $600 payment to a $700 payment because the new car is fancier. And just like that, they've trapped themselves for another 6 years. They never actually benefit from paying off the first car. They're on a hamster wheel where they go from one payment to the next their entire lives. And the people who actually build wealth are the ones who break that cycle. They pay off a car, they keep the old car if it's reliable, and they redirect that money toward investments. Or they upgrade to a used car with a lower payment and invest the difference. The key is breaking the psychological cycle of always having a payment. So here's the thing about opportunity costs that I keep coming back to. Every month you make a $600 car payment. Instead of investing that money, you're making a trade-off. You're trading potential future wealth for current transportation. And sometimes that trade-off makes sense. If you need a reliable car for work and you can't afford to buy one used outright, then financing might be your best option in the short term. But here's where people mess up. They never actually view it as a temporary solution. They never think, okay, I'm going to finance this car for now, but as soon as I've built up my wealth enough, I'm going to be done with car payments forever. Most people just accept the car payment as a permanent part of their financial life. And that mindset is exactly what keeps them stuck. The people who build serious wealth are the ones who view car payments as a temporary tactic, not a permanent condition. I want to challenge something that you probably believe right now. You probably think that people who drive older cars without payments are somehow worse off than people with new cars and payments. They might even feel that way themselves. But statistically, if we're measuring actual wealth and financial freedom, that couldn't be more wrong. The person driving an older paid-off car and investing the money that would have gone to a payment is in a massively stronger financial position. They might feel poorer because their car isn't as shiny, but they're actually richer because they've got actual money building in investment accounts. Wealth isn't about what your car looks like. Wealth is about what your net worth looks like. And your net worth doesn't care about your car's appearance. It only cares about the actual dollars and assets you've accumulated. Let me give you one more perspective on this that I think ties everything together. Let's think about the average American and their relationship with cars over their lifetime. You work from age 22 to age 67. That's 45 years. Over those 45 years, how many cars do you think the average person owns? Probably somewhere between 8 and 12, depending on their preferences. Let's say 10 cars. If each car costs an average of $70,000 over its ownership period when you factor in payments, insurance, maintenance, and gas, that's $700,000 just on transportation over your entire working life. Meanwhile, if you're saving and investing during that same 45-year period, you could accumulate over $2 million in wealth if you're consistent. So the choice about cars directly impacts whether you retire with $2 million or retire with basically nothing because you spent it all on vehicles. That's not an exaggeration. That's just math. And it's math that almost nobody does. The thing that really gets to me is I know people who make 6 figures and they're still stressed about money. They're driving fancy cars. They've got the car payments. They've got the status symbols. But they've got no savings. They've got no investment accounts. They're basically one job loss away from disaster. And then I know people who make half that much who are financially set because they never got trapped in the car payment cycle. They made boring choices. They drove reliable used cars. They invested the difference. And now they're the ones with actual freedom. They're not worried about money because they don't have these massive monthly obligations. They can take time off work. They can negotiate salaries from a position of strength. They can weather unexpected expenses without freaking out. That's what breaking the car payment trap gets you. Here's the actionable stuff if you're actually thinking about making a change. If you're currently locked in a car payment that you can't easily escape, start planning your exit. Figure out how much longer you have to pay. Start thinking about what your next vehicle will be. Plan to buy it used. Plan to own it for 7 or 8 years instead of 5 or 6. Build a separate savings account specifically for your next car purchase. When you finally pay off your current vehicle, instead of immediately jumping into a new payment, keep driving the old car for another year and put that payment money toward your next vehicle purchase in cash. You'll break the payment cycle. It might take a year, it might take 2 years, but the day you finally buy a car without financing is the day you start actually building wealth instead of just spinning your wheels. And if you don't have a car payment right now, do yourself a massive favor and never get one if you can help it. Yes, I know that's easier said than done. Life happens. Sometimes you need reliable transportation and you can't afford to buy it outright. I understand that reality, but if you can possibly avoid it, you should. Save up. Be patient. Buy used. Make boring car choices. Make choices that your future self will actually thank you for. Your future self will thank you for the freedom that not having a car payment creates, because that's what this really comes down to. It's not about cars. It's not about transportation. It's about freedom. Every car payment is a chain. Every payment means you're obligated to your lender for the next 6 years. Every payment means you can't take risks with your career. Every payment means you can't pursue that dream or that idea that might change your life. Every payment means you're working for the bank instead of working for yourself or building something that matters to you. And I think you're worth more than that. I think you deserve better. I think you deserve the freedom that comes from not being trapped in car payments your entire life.